I'm named after my grandfather, Ludwig, whose death on August 13, 1944, in Auschwitz, my family recently observed. My middle name, Ira, memorializes my grandfather, Isaac, who, as a young man in 1905, was forced, along with tens of thousands of others, from Ukraine by the Tsar after years of persecution in the Pale of Settlement. Both men were marked, and their families, because they were Jewish, and they both suffered under the color of law. The notion that law as an instrument of societal order and the fragility of the values that underlie that order has always been with me. During my professional career in the public and private sector, and in my personal life, I've tried to keep in mind my values and how difficult it can be to preserve and affect these values. My time at Case and my interaction with the faculty since my graduation and life experience has helped me to maintain that focus. I can't say that law school was the first alternative that came to mind when I returned to the United States in 1969 after 2 years as an undergraduate in Istanbul, Turkey. But when Dean Ivan Stone at Beloit College offered a letter of recommendation to Louis Tepfer, who was Dean of Case Law at the time, I took the path that my parents encouraged and was of least resistance. My early time in law school was disorienting. I was learning a new language, a new way of thinking. The environment was competitive. There was little hand-holding. Many in my class left. I learned the language and the process, which was to support me so well. And when I got a legal internship through Mel Derschlag at the Cleveland Legal Aid Society at East 55th Street, I had my anchor and my focus. In addition to helping those who came through the office, I advised the Huff Neighborhood Association in their efforts to stabilize the neighborhood and to create a private police force to supplement the Cleveland police force. I had no inclination, and certainly not much preparation, for a business or regulatory law practice, but when my efforts with legal aid, the Peace Corps, the State Department were not immediately fruitful, instead of going back to New Jersey and going into practice with my father's hometown lawyer, an offer from the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio looked very, very appealing. With the optimism and confidence of a new graduate, I headed to Columbus and the unknown. After presiding over utility rate applications and learning still another language, I joined the Ohio Attorney General's office under William J. Brown doing trial work. I worked with his Juvenile Justice Task Force in an effort to modernize the justice system. From there, I joined the Consumers Council, State of Ohio, representing utility consumers as a class before the Ohio Utilities Commission. While at the PUC, I realized I needed a greater understanding of the business and financial issues that I was presented with. I began an MBA at Ohio State, and it was parallel to this that I began acquiring investment properties. I joined Washington Gas Light Company as a rate and regulatory counsel and retired from the company. Washington Gas is the gas public utility serving 1 million customers in the greater Washington, D.C. area. I was a board member of the D.C. Apartment Improvement Project and committee chair of its Project Review Committee, a semi-public group charged with maintaining and developing low and moderate income and workforce housing in the District of Columbia. Mel Derschlag's urban development classes came in handy. Over the years, I've been privileged to support and serve on the boards of a number of nonprofits. Presently, I serve on the board of the American Friends of Ben-Gurion University. Here, my goal is to deepen the institutional and academic relationships between CASE and BGU. I also serve on the board of the Haberman Institute for Jewish Studies. I've come to see my relationship to the law school not as one of experience. Let me just repeat that. I've come to see my relationship to the law school not as a one of experience, limited to 3 years, but one that has deepened over time. I firmly believe in the necessity of supporting the school and its faculty. I'm particularly impressed by how the faculty has distinguished themselves as scholars of human rights and international law. Their efforts to create a more diverse and international student body and to expand the opportunities for student experiences in the larger legal community. These efforts stimulate and encourage my wish to support and be part of the law school community. I had gone to school in Istanbul, Turkey through my undergraduate school, Beloit College. I was there for 2 years in Turkey. I came back to Wisconsin, where Beloit is located, and the dean of the overseas program, Ivan Stone, asked what was next for me. What did I want to do? Well, my parents had a friend who was at the time president of SACO America. And at that point, MBAs were non-existent. And he too was interested in what it was I was going to do next. And when I told him I had no real clear idea of what it was I was going to do, he said, you know, law school is the place to go for those who are interested in the business community. It teaches analytical thinking. All of the senior execs that he had hired in his company all had law degrees. So when Ivan Stone suggested that I applied a case and was kind enough to write this letter on my behalf to Louis Tepfer, it seemed like the path of least resistance. It opened up alternatives that were not ordinarily, or at least would not have occurred to me. And so the letter was written, I was accepted, and the rest is history. I entered the class of 1972 in 1969. This was before the new law school building, the Gund Law School building, had opened. We met in the old law school building, which was right next to the coroner's office. I don't think the building is there anymore. It was a magnificent Victorian building. I recall the library as being everything you could imagine a library, a law library, certainly you could be. It was tall, it was light, it was musty. The floors were made of glass so that the light from the windows could shine through the floors of the library into the areas below, into the stacks below. This was before computer aided legal research. We were we were given assignments. We had to go to the stacks. We had to learn the encyclopedias, the corpus juris, the various federal reports and state reports. It was an entirely different process than it is today. Probably, I would say in retrospect, that the process then resulted in a broader understanding of what the law was. If we were going through corpus juris, looking for something specific and something else caught my eye, there it was. It was just a question of reading the entry and educating ourselves that way. In that sense, it was much more of a traditional legal education. A good part of my freshman year was a blur. It was, I was literally learning a new language and a new way of thinking about a process. It was terrifically competitive. It was really the first time that I'd been in an environment that so much depended upon and there was relatively little support, at least from other students. And not so much from the faculty unless you were insightful enough to seek it out. And I can't say that I did that in every case. But I felt that I got a great education from Sidney Jacoby, who taught civil procedure. Ovid Lewis taught constitutional law, for one. I had a great tax class from Leon Gabinet, most of which sticks with me today, although it's substantially outdated. My interaction with the faculty, with the deans, continues to be an education for me. Instead of thinking about a problem as I had, or I might be inclined to, as within a box, my continued engagement impresses upon me how the law has changed over time, how it's broadened, how it's become, how society has changed as a consequence of that. When I was first in law school, and if I'm mischaracterizing it, I know someone will correct me, but the idea was that the individual was to conform with the law, that the broader charge of society was essentially to encourage the individual to conform to the larger expectations of society. An example being a same-sex marriage. The idea was, and we were taught then, not explicitly, that an individual who didn't conform had to conform. The right of the individual to a same-sex marriage simply did not exist. Today, the emphasis is different. The emphasis is on the individual, the emphasis is on human individual rights, and society is moving in that direction and supports that. That's, for me, part of the education that I get as I'm, interact with the law school and with, the faculty there. This is an institution that has really given so much to us, that has allowed us to be very comfortable in our lives. And we want to provide that opportunity to students who come after us. We want to support the institution. We want the values and the goals of the institution to flourish. I'm aware that other institutions are not doing so well. There are numerous undergraduate schools, liberal arts colleges, that don't have the resources to maintain themselves, and they're closing doors. And I don't want to see that happen to Case, not that there's much of a chance of that, but I want to encourage Case, and I want to encourage its work. I'm tremendously optimistic about it. I'm terrifically excited, and this is part of what Sue and I are interested in supporting. Not only does our money support the ongoing programs of the law school, but it also supports individual students in their studies and in their own goals. My hope is that those students at some point in their lives will recognize that it's people like Sue and I who have made what they have accomplished in some small part possible, and they will do the same for others. I know my friends who've gone to other law schools didn't have the same opportunities, didn't find their way in the same way that I did, and their lives turned out differently. Well, the university itself is a substantially changed entity from when I was there in 1969, 1972. The relationships between the various silos, the academic silos with the institution, are much broader. I also happen to serve on the Case University Internationalization, committee, which has opened a tremendous number of windows to me to see how engaged Case is with the Cleveland community and with the international community, and how the relationship between Case and its international connections benefit the city of Cleveland. It's astounding to me to see how, for example, the new medical sciences building and the work that it's doing, and the students that come to Cleveland specifically and to Case specifically to study at that facility. The engineering schools are literally world-renowned. One of the entities, as I mentioned, I'm working with is Ben Gurion University and other Israeli institutions who are very eager to create relationships with Case and the STEM institutions at Case because of the facilities that are available at Case and the academic research that's carried on at Case. It's important to write a check. It's important to be involved. It's important to open those envelopes, to read the bulletins that come from Case. It's important to recognize that this is a living, organic institution that is evolving and that we need to be part of as alums.